You awaken the crappiest F-class ability in history, a storage space of 1 cubic meter. The whole school's mocking you as a portable little box only good for moving bricks, but they have no idea how terrifying the laws of space really are. If you cover half the space over a person's head and leave the other half hanging in the air, then force it shut in an instant. Yep, that becomes an absolute cut that ignores any and all defenses. What if you split that 1 cubic meter of space into 10 cubic centimeter spaces? Next, a cold mechanical voice echoed through the awakening hall of Jiangcheng No. 1 High School. Thousands of eyes locked onto you at the exact same time. You wore an old, washed-out school uniform and walked up to the high platform, step by step from the corner. You pressed your hand against the awakening stone. Exotic beasts run rampant in this world, and the class hierarchy is super strict. The ability you awaken pretty much determines how far a person can go in the future. It even decides if he and his family can escape the fate of being caged at the bottom of society. So at this moment, everyone is watching. But when the awakening stone lit up, the light was pathetically weak. The off-white halo only covered its surface in a thin layer, like a dying candle flickering in the wind. The audience went dead silent for a second, then burst into waves of mocking laughter. You call that an awakening. Off-white light. What a trash ability. I've never even heard of that. It's probably not even E-class, right? The recording mentor stared at the final text frozen on the light screen and shook his head in disappointment. He announced directly, Lin An's awakened ability, E-class storage space. Additional note, space volume is 1 cubic meter. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire hall burst into hysterical laughter. 1 cubic meter of storage space. That's just a portable little box, isn't it? Even if you take this ability to logistics to move goods, they'll think it holds too little stuff. He's from the slums. Even his ability reeks of poverty. Harsh taunts came at you from all directions, but you just quietly pulled your hand back, stared at that line of cold text. No anger on your face, no unwillingness either, nothing but dead silence. You know perfectly well that when you have no power, emotions are never worth anything. Right at that moment, a blinding golden light exploded from backstage, immediately drawing everyone's attention over. Young Master Zhaozi, level 4. That's definitely S-class. It's Red Lotus Karmic Fire. The Zhao family bloodline is really that insane. Amid all the exclamations, Zhao Zhe, the direct heir of the Zhao family, walked up to the high platform surrounded by pale golden flames. He wore a fancy school uniform with undisguised arrogance on his face. Unlike you, he was born at the finish line. Most people spend their whole lives chasing. Now he's also awakened one of the top offensive abilities in existence. From now on, resources, status, and a bright future will all come to him automatically. But he didn't stay to enjoy the cheers first. He walked straight up to you instead. He looked down at you from above, a cruel sneer tugging at the corner of his mouth. Lin An? Who did I think it was? Oh, it's you, the rat hiding in the sewers? He raised his finger wrapped in flames and pointed at your chest from a distance. He mocked you word for word. Level 1 storage space. 1 cubic meter. That's actually perfect. When your poor loser sister dies later, you can use it to store her leftover stuff. At the mention of your sister, the dead stillness in your eyes finally flickered for a second. A wisp of cold killing intent flashed by. Zhao Ze caught that change sharply and laughed even more wildly. What, you got a problem? Trash like you doesn't even deserve to stand here breathing and wasting Jiangcheng's air. After saying that, he turned directly to look at Mentor Wang. His tone wasn't asking for permission. It was a command. Doesn't the school have one more scholarship spot for poor students to get into War Academy? It was supposed to be for him, right? Mentor Wang's face went pale as he whispered, yes, according to grades and overall assessment, this spot was originally for classmate Lin An. It's gone now. Zhao Zi's tone was flat, but it carried the power to decide people's fates. I don't want to see a useless loser who's not even fit to be a logistics soldier, taking up resources in the same school as me, Zhao Ze. Mentor Wang still wanted to argue a little. This is against the rules. Rules? Zhao Ze sneers. Flames burst up violently. In River City, whatever my Zhao family says is the rule. The hall falls dead silent instantly. No one speaks up for you. Everyone just stares at you. Some have sympathy in their eyes. Some have Schadenfreude, and others are waiting to see you break down. But you don't break. You just lift your eyes and look at Zhao Ze. Your gaze is terrifyingly calm, like you're looking at someone with no future left. Zhao Ze hates this kind of look from you the most. The smile fades from his face little by little. He says gloomily, Good, I really hate that look. Get lost. Instructor Wang sighs and hands you a form. Sign it. It's a dropout application. You awaken this kind of ability. There's no point staying in school. Just accept it. Go get a screw tightening job at the East City factory. At least you can make ends meet. You take the application and glance at it. Then pick up a pen and sign your name in the signature column. Your handwriting is steady, without a single bit of hesitation. After signing, you hand the form back. Turn around and leave. You don't argue a single word the whole time. Because in your rules of survival, you never argue with a dead man walking. You just walk out of the school gate when the sky turns completely overcast. Lightning rips through the dark clouds, and torrential rain comes pouring down on your head. It soaks you through in no time, but you act like you can't feel the cold at all. You just walk forward numbly. Just then, the second-hand phone with a cobweb-cracked screen in your pocket suddenly vibrates. After you answer it, a cold hospital notice comes from the other end of the line. This is City First Hospital. Your sister Lin Xia's divine source cold syndrome suddenly worsened, and she has been sent to the ICU. You must pay 100,000 star coins within 24 hours for the Tuan Yuan #1 special medicine. If you can't pay, we have to stop treatment per regulations and move the patient out of the ICU. 100,000 star coins. That number hits your brain like a heavy hammer. For rich people, it's just a number. But for you, it's an astronomical figure you can never reach. You speak in a hurried voice. Doctor, please give me a few more days. I will definitely. The other end hangs up directly. Only the cold dial tone remains. You stand in the heavy rain. Your fingers slowly clench into a fist. You crush the rain-soaked dropout application into pulp little by little. The last bit of forbearance on your face disappears, leaving only resolution and madness. No school anymore. No future anymore. There's no chance left with legal channels. This world and all these rules never intended to leave a way out for you and Lin Xi. So you have to take it by force yourself. So you turn around sharply and head for the slum at the edge of the city, the one forgotten by light and order. The deeper you go, the darker the road gets. Finally, you turn into the deepest, dirtiest, dark alley that doesn't even have streetlights. Your gaze completely changes at this moment. Then I'll fight for it with my life. But as soon as you finish speaking, a strong, sickening stench, mixed with the rank smell of wild beasts, pounces at you from the deep end of the alley. Right after that, 2 scarlet lanterns light up quietly in the dark. Those aren't lights. They're a pair of eyes. A Tier 2 alien beast, the shadow wolf that should have been, outside the city walls. This kind of alien beast is famous for its speed and sharp claws. It's the nightmare of new recruits. If an ordinary person faces it head-on, forget winning. It's a miracle if they can survive more than 3 seconds. But the second the thought of running pops into your head, you crush it yourself. Turning your back on a wolf will only make you lose faster. So instead of retreating, you move forward. You take half a step forward, lower your center of gravity. Your right hand quickly grabs a rusty, sharp-ended scrap rebar from the ground and hold it across your chest. This is the instinct you traded pain and broken bones for. In the underground fight club of the slums, when facing a stronger enemy, the more scared you are of losing, the faster you lose. You can only have a chance to survive if you put on a more ruthless, more reckless attitude. The man and the wolf face off in the muddy, dark alley. The next second, the shadow wolf moves. It pounces like a black afterimage, aiming straight for your throat. You can barely see its movements. You can only rely on the intuition honed through countless life-or-death fights. You twist your body as far right as possible at the last second. Rip. You avoid getting your throat slit, but your left shoulder and arm still get raked hard by the wolf's claws. A huge chunk of flesh is torn right off on the spot. Bright red blood gushes out instantly. The searing pain makes your vision go black, but you don't back down. On the contrary, that pain has lit up, the ruthless streak deep in your bones. You let out a fierce roar. Using the momentum from twisting your body, you drive the steel bar backward hard straight at its eye. This strike is fast enough and brutal enough, but you still underestimated how terrifying a Tier 2 exotic beast is. The shadow wolf jerks its head aside mid-air. The steel bar doesn't pierce its eyeball, it just clangs against its hard skull. It penetrates less than half an inch before getting stuck. The shadow wolf is enraged by the pain. It snaps its head violently. You can't keep hold of the steel bar. Your whole body is dragged and you crash to the ground. What comes next is a truly savage brawl. You and it roll around together in sewage and mud. It rips your flesh open with its sharp claws again and again. You're like a completely rabid wild animal. You give up most of your defense. You attack with your fists, elbows, knees, even your teeth, at every possibly fatal spot on its body. 3 bone-deep claw marks are torn into your back. The wound on your shoulder keeps bleeding. Your strength and consciousness are fading fast, too. Your movements get slower and slower as you fight. Your breathing gets more and more erratic. Finally, the shadow wolf sees an opening. It slams you hard into the wall. The back of your head jolts hard. You see stars flashing in front of your eyes. The next second, its heavy wolf body presses down on you. Its 2 sharp claws pin your shoulders down hard. It nails you to the corner of the wall. You can't move at all. It lowers its head. Its stinking snout is less than 5 centimeters from your throat. You can even see every mark on its fangs clearly. Despair crawls all over your body like ice. But right at this moment, Lynch's face flashes across your mind. That pale, always smiling little face. Brother, you'll definitely become the strongest ability user ever. Brother, when I get better, I want to eat the tanghulu from that shop south of the city. I can't lose. If I lose, what will happen to Linxia? What about the 100,000 star coins? What about that notice from the hospital to stop treatment? Just as the shadow wolf opens its jaws wide, ready to crush your skull in one bite, your muddled, dying brain falls into an unprecedented state of calm instead. Pain, fear, resentment. It's like something has pulled all of them away. There are only 2 things left in your world: the approaching wolf head and the ability that everyone mocks as useless. Storage space. What is space? It's an invisible, untouchable, yet really existing box. Since it's a box, it must have edges, and edges appear when you open and close it. They also disappear. An insanely crazy idea. Suddenly cuts through your consciousness. What if an object gets stuck right on this edge? Your gaze locks tightly on the shadow wolf's head and neck joint. The next second, you pour all your mental power, all your willpower, even all your life force into an unprecedentedly clear thought. The lower half of the space covers the wolf's head. The upper half of the space stays in the air above the wolf's neck. The space edge is perfectly aligned at the junction of the wolf's head and neck. Close. The storage space closes instantly. The weight pressing on you suddenly lightens. Right after that, a stream of hot, sticky liquid gushes all over your head and face like a broken dam. You lean against the wall, gasping hard like a broken bellows. You look down. Your pupils shrink suddenly. The shadow wolf's body is still pressed against your legs, but its head is gone. The cut on its neck is horrifyingly smooth, like it was sliced clean by the sharpest laser. Fur, blood vessels, bones, nerves, all cut cleanly. Not a single rough edge. You close your eyes subconsciously. You sink your consciousness into your ability space. The next second, you jolt all over. That ferocious wolf head is quietly floating in the middle of that only 1 cubic meter space. Its eyes still hold the rage and shock from right before it died. The cut edge is also as smooth as a mirror. You finally realize the truly terrifying part of your ability was never storage, but the space edge itself. As long as something gets stuck on that edge, no matter if it's flesh, bone, or steel, it will be cut straight off by the laws of space. This is no ordinary attack. It doesn't follow physics. It doesn't care about defense. It doesn't even care about the gap in strength. It's an absolute cut on the rule level. Is a tier 2 exotic beast's skull hard enough? It still gets split right in 2. What about fire superpowers later on? Hardening superpowers, indestructible diamond bodies. If they can't stand up to the law of space, none of them mean a damn thing. The so-called useless superpower in everyone's eyes finally shows its real fangs at this moment. You stare at the wolf head in your space. The corner of your mouth slowly curls up until you can't hold back the wild joy of carving a path out of a desperate situation. You let out a low, manic laugh. Ha 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 ha! The laugh echoes through the rainy alley, full of the madness of surviving a near-death experience and the coldness of finally seeing fate's whole hand. But you force yourself to calm down fast, because right now money matters more than celebrating. You fight through the tearing pain all over your body, grab that cheap folding dagger, and use the basic skills you picked up when you processed exotic beast materials in the black market before. Cut open the shadow wolf's chest, and soon, you dig out a fist-sized crystal next to its heart that glows with shifting deep blue light, a tier 2 exotic beast core. And it's a perfectly intact shadow-type core too. Through official channels, you need a license to trade stuff like this, but on the underground black market, it's the most solid currency there is. Conservative estimate. This core is worth at least 300,000 star coins. 300k is more than enough for your little sister's medical bills. You'll even have a ton left over. You put the core into your storage space, then quickly clean up the scene. You drag the wolf's remains to an unnoticeable spot at the alley mouth. Dump a few pieces of minced meat around it, to make it look like it was eaten by other beasts, or left behind after a half-assed cleaned-up gang fight. Then you take off that stained school uniform and toss it straight into the sewage trash can. That uniform represented your old rule-following, pushover student identity. From this moment on, that identity is gone. You dig through the trash and find an oversized black hooded trench coat. Then use the last few coins in your pocket at a street stall to buy the cheapest white plastic mask they have. The mask has a creepy, fixed smile painted on it. You put the hood up and fasten the mask on. A brand new figure stares back at you in the mirror. From now on, there's no student Lin An left in this world. All that's left is a hunter that drifts through the night and the shadows. You give yourself a new code name, Zero. It stands for having nothing, and it also stands for the start of everything. Half an hour later, you arrive at the biggest underground trading center in Jiang City, the Black Gold Market. Its entrance is hidden deep in an abandoned underground parking lot. Two big guys stand at the door. Their waists are bulging. It's obvious they're carrying weapons. When they see you wearing the smiley mask and a beat-up trench coat, they immediately write you off as an easy newbie to push around. Stop! The Scarface guy looks you up and down, his tone hostile. Where'd you come from, brat? Wearing a raggedy mask to play spooky. You know the rules around here. The other bald guy is even more direct. He reaches out to stop you. Want to get in? Pay 100 star coin search fee first. You stop in your tracks. You don't say a word. You just calmly glance over the two of them, before your gaze lands on the weapon at Scarface's waist, less than a meter away. Perfect. When Scarface sees you not saying anything, he reaches for his weapon, but before he can even pull it out, your psychic power already pierces the middle of the gun barrel. Space open, edges cover the barrel, space close. Click. Half the gun barrel drops straight to the ground. The cut is as smooth as a mirror. The two big guys freeze on the spot. Scarface looks down at the half gun left in his hand, then looks at the half piece of metal on the ground. A cold chill runs straight up his spine. They didn't even see what you did. All they saw was the special alloy barrel get bitten off by some invisible monster out of nowhere. The unknown is way scarier than plain power. The bald guy yanks his hand back immediately, forcing a smile. Please go right in, sir. You don't even spare them a second glance, and walk straight into this lawless, profit-only underground world. The inside of the Black Gold Market is way bigger than the outside, and way more chaotic too. The air smells like motor oil, cheap booze, and ozone. Neon signs leave everyone's face half lit, half in shadow. There are mercenaries and exoskeletons here, black-clad dealers selling banned drugs, and brokers huddled in the corners trading intel and bounty lists. You don't waste any time and head straight for the fanciest 3-story building in the center of the market. Behind the counter of the Black Gold Chamber of Commerce, a 200-something-pound fat shopkeeper is wiping gems with his head down. He asks without looking up, "What you selling?" You don't answer, just held a hand above the counter. With a single thought, thud, that fist-sized, glowing deep blue crystal core landed hard on the counter. The fatty froze mid-movement, slowly lifted his head. The greed in his eyes was barely hidden. But he was a total veteran of the black market after all. The shock on his face lasted half a second before turning to disgust. He picked up the core and pretended to examine it, then tossed it carelessly onto the counter. Mediocre quality, messy, impure energy, barely reached level 2 standard. 100K, take it or leave it. This wasn't just haggling anymore. It was practically daylight robbery. But you didn't get angry at all, nor did you try to bargain. You just let out a soft, cold laugh, reached out to take the core back into your space, and turned to leave. The fatty panicked right away. Only people who don't know the market would pester and beg. Someone who turns and leaves immediately like you definitely knows the market better than he does. Wait, we can negotiate the price. You didn't stop. 200K. You kept walking forward. 250K, that's my final offer. Only then did you stop in your tracks and turned halfway around. Your smiling mask looked extra eerie under the light. 300K transferred to an anonymous black card. The fatty's face twitched once. He finally agreed through gritted teeth. Soon a fully jet black, unmarked metal card was pushed in front of you. You picked up the black card and turned to leave immediately. The second you walked out the guild's front door, the smile on the fatty's face vanished instantly. He gestured at a burly man drinking in the corner to get rid of you. The burly man grinned and brought 4 other tattooed goons with him and followed you quietly. You'd noticed those 5 tails right from the start. More importantly, on the way, you even tested a new use for your ability on a whim. You picked up a piece of gravel, stored it in your space the second you took a step. Then as you took your next step, you released it out in front of you. The gravel ended up carrying the kinetic energy of your run and shot out like a bullet. You realized immediately in that moment, your storage space can not only cut things, it can also store and release kinetic energy temporarily. So a way more efficient counter-kill plan formed quickly. You deliberately led those 5 people through the maze-like small alleys of the black market and finally walked into an abandoned, 3rd-level underground parking lot. It was dark, remote, and empty. No security cameras either. Perfect for taking care of problems. Sure enough, after you stopped, the 5 men immediately surrounded you from all directions, blocking all your escape routes. The lead burly man held an alloy machete, with a cat playing with mouse smirk on his face. Nice running, kid. Leave the card here, and hand over everything you've got. We're in a good mood today. Might even let you off easy. You turned around slowly. Your white smiling mask looked weird and eerie under the dim yellow light. You didn't get mad, nor did you throw out any threats. You just spoke in a calm, completely emotionless voice and asked, "Are your heads worth any money?" The burly man was stunned for a second, then flew into a rage. He gripped the knife with both hands and swung it hard straight at your forehead. The blade tore through the air, whistling as it came down. For any regular person, this slash would cut them from head to chest. But you didn't step back at all. You even stepped forward towards the blade. The second the blade was about to hit you, the edge of your space swept across the blade first, so the sharpest front half of the blade vanished into thin air. The burly man's hand suddenly went light. He stumbled forward hard from the missed strike. You had already slipped within a meter of him. Space open, edge covers the neck, space close. A dull tearing sound. The fury and aggression on the burly man's face froze instantly. His head, along with the tattoo on his neck, vanished completely. The next second, bright red blood shot up from his severed neck. The headless body stayed in its forward charging position and fell heavily to the ground. The air went dead silent instantly. The remaining 4 goons all froze. The grins on their faces were frozen solid, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. They didn't even understand what you just did. They just watched a fully grown man's head disappear right in front of their eyes. Finally, someone screamed hysterically, "Ghost! It's a ghost!" The 4 of them turned and ran for their lives. But there's no way you're letting them leave alive. You stomp your foot lightly. You glide along close to the ground, like a ghost shadow, and catch up to the nearest person. He doesn't even have time to turn around. All he feels is a chill on his neck. The next second, he blacks out completely. The second one falls. The third one falls. The fourth one falls. The fifth one falls. You make no unnecessary movements. Every strike is just the simplest, most lethal close-range neck-severing move. The whole process only takes a few seconds. Only 5 mangled bodies are left scattered across the parking lot. Bright red blood spreads quickly across the ground, like a freshly unfurled painting of hell, and you stand right in the middle. Your black trench coat is spotless, not a single drop of blood on it. You crouch down and calmly pat down all the bodies thoroughly. You stand up a few minutes later. The haul is pretty good. A few stacks of cash, about 30,000 star coins, and a finely crafted military alloy dagger. You put the cash and dagger into your storage space. Then you touch the black card in your innermost pocket. 300,000 plus, this 30,000, that's enough. It's finally enough. Through that creepy smiling mask, your gaze seems to cut through layers of darkness, landing on that pale little face in the hospital ICU. Your eyes, which have always been cold and lifeless, finally have a hint of warmth in them. "Shishya, brother's got money to save you now." You mumble softly, then carefully tuck the black card back into your innermost pocket. Then don't linger any longer and turn around to leave, leaving this blood-soaked parking lot, tossed back into the dark. Less than 5 minutes after you leave. Tap, tap, tap. A flurry of hurried footsteps approaches. The fat shopkeeper of the Black Gold Chamber of Commerce brings over a dozen guards holding energy guns, all of them tough and aggressive. They storm furiously into this abandoned parking lot. "Where is he? Damn it. 5 against 1 and you still let him get away. When I catch that kid, I'm gonna personally rip him," the fat shopkeeper's curses. Stop abruptly the second he sees the scene in front of him. The fat on his face shakes violently. His tiny eyes that were squished into slits are now wide open, completely bloodshot. 5 bodies. 5 decapitated bodies. His most capable enforcer, the guy who awakened C-grade hardened skin, is lying face down in a pool of blood like a tattered burlap sack. The cut on his neck is so smooth you could use it as a mirror. A bone-chilling cold shoots from the fat shopkeeper's tailbone straight up to the top of his skull. With a loud thud, his legs give out. He plops down straight into the cold, sticky blood. His lips are trembling, his teeth are chattering. This cut. He points at the mirror-smooth cut on the neck, his voice trembling with sobs and sheer terror. No burn marks. No tear marks. It's spatial cutting. Someone who can use the law of space so precisely, so terrifyingly well. They're at least peak B rank. No, they're a top-tier Jai-level space ability user. The fat shopkeeper's mind goes blank with a loud buzz. Completely empty. What kind of terrifying existence did I just mess with? When did a god of slaughter like this come to Jiang City? The night is deep. The rain has stopped. First, you take the black trench coat symbolizing Ling, the smiling mask, and the stained military dagger and put them all into your storage space. Then you change back into that old school uniform you fished out of a trash can and washed clean afterwards. You sling that faded, washed-out backpack over your shoulder and turn back into that seemingly unremarkable, even somewhat scrawny student. You can change your clothes, but you can't change the look in your eyes. The boy who used to carry a hint of inferiority and restraint disappeared in the rainy alley last night. The you right now has thick, unyielding coldness and sharpness in your eyes. Then you head straight to Jiang City First Hospital. At the late-night payment window, the nurse on duty was half asleep. But when you slam that bearer black card against the glass window with a loud bang, she jolts awake in shock. She didn't even have time to fully show her annoyed expression. You look at her and only say one thing. ICU. Linsha, use the best special medicine right now, immediately. There's 330,000 star coins in the card. If it's not enough, I'll get more. Your voice is very hoarse, but there's no room for negotiation whatsoever. The nurse is stunned at first, then looks down at that bearer black card which represents massive amounts of wealth, then looks up at your cheap school uniform, and the disbelief in her eyes is impossible to miss. A teenager dressed like a low-income student can casually drop over 300,000 star coins. This huge contrast left him for a moment, even completely at a loss for words, but the balance on the black card doesn't lie, so he finally changed his attitude immediately, got up to contact the doctor, and arranged the highest level of treatment plan. Half an hour later, the latest gene repair serum was finally slowly injected into Lin Xia's body until you saw your little sister's paper pale face slowly regain a faint hint of color. Your constantly tense nerves finally relaxed a little. The ward was very quiet. You sat by the bed brushing her sweat-soaked hair. Your movements were very gentle. Only at this moment, the almost bone-freezing violence and killing intent in your eyes slowly faded away bit by bit, turning into an almost clumsy tenderness. Lin Xia is your only anchor in this cold and unforgiving world, and also your biggest untouchable red line. But even though she was sick and weak, she was still very sharp and observant. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly and slowly opened her eyes. She grabbed your hand and asked softly if you'd done something dangerous. She smelled that faint, unmissable metallic rust scent on your clothes. She also sensed a coldness on you totally different from your usual self. Your heart twinged sharply, but you still forced a gentle smile on your face and ruffled her hair like you always do and lied to her softly. No, your brother just sold that school admission spot to a rich heir from a powerful conglomerate family to get money for your treatment first. When Linsha heard that, her eyes immediately dimmed. She knew exactly what that spot meant to you, and she also knew exactly how much you'd sacrificed for that spot over the years, so with red eyes, she whispered that she was dragging you down, but you just tapped her nose lightly and smiled like you were comforting a kid, saying, "It's just a stupid, useless spot. It's no big deal if it's gone. Even if your brother doesn't go to school, I can still become the most powerful person out there. Stop overthinking right now. Just focus on getting better. When you recover, I'll take you to eat tanghulu from that shop south of the city." After Linsha fell asleep again, you tucked her in properly and watched her quietly for a long time until you walked out of the ward. The last bit of warmth on your face completely vanished, replaced by a killing intent colder than the night itself. Xiaozi stole your spot, insulted your sister, and trampled on your pride. All these scores are about to be settled once and for all. The next morning, sunlight shone through the gates of Jiangcheng No. 1 High School, but when it fell on you, it seemed to be blocked by that invisible cold aura around you. Just like every day for the past 3 years, you walked into school with your old backpack. Only this time, you didn't go back to the classroom. You went straight to the academic affairs office and picked up an application form for the Civil Dancer National Exam. Since the guaranteed admission spot was forcefully taken by Zhao Ze, The path through formal school is already closed for you. That being the case, you'll take another path that's harder, more dangerous, but also much more direct. The Civil Dancer National Exam has extremely high risks. Participants are either people with no connections or resources who have to risk their lives to fight for a future, or people who've been pushed to a dead end with no other way out, and you obviously belong to the latter group. But you just walked out of the office with the form when a super harsh, annoying voice came from up ahead, sneering, "Yo, ain't this our school's former genius Linan?" You looked up. Zhao Ze was walking towards you with a few of his goons. He even had his arm around a heavily made-up female classmate. His face was full of smug satisfaction. He looked just like a winner who'd climbed to the top by stepping on other people's bones and even made a point to turn around and mock those he'd crushed. He walked right up to you. First looked you up and down deliberately, then started mocking you, saying you didn't come to class yesterday. Were you sitting at home being sad? You didn't bother to pay attention to him and turned to walk around him. But Zhao Ze grabbed your shoulder hard. Then his gaze dropped down and landed on the application form in your hand. He snatched it away casually, and when he saw the words on it, he froze for a second first. Then he reacted like he'd heard the funniest joke ever and started laughing exaggeratedly. Civil Dancer National Exam application form. Guys, come look at this. A guy who only awakened a level 1 storage space actually wants to take the Civil Dancer National Exam. Are you tired of living? Gonna run to the wild zone and deliver yourself as takeout to exotic beasts? He was yelling really loud. Pretty soon, the area around the hallway was surrounded by a large group of students. Some people whispered that you must have lost your mind. Others shook their heads inside. They thought someone like you taking part in the National Public Exam was no different from suicide. There were even people who just wanted to watch the show. They wanted to see if after Zhao Ze stomps you into the dirt, you'd still bow your head and accept your fate like you used to. In the eyes of these people, your past restraint and silence had long been misinterpreted as weakness. So all of them thought this time would be no different at all. But right when everyone was thinking that way, Zhao Ze threw the application form on the ground. Then he lifted his foot. With those limited edition tactical boots worth tens of thousands of star coins, he stomped hard on the form. He ground the form under his foot back and forth, while looking down at you from above. His tone was vicious to the extreme. Losers should stay in their place. This piece of paper is your stupid wishful thinking. Crushing it is as easy as stepping on an ant. If this was before, you might have really lowered your head, quietly picked up the paper, and swallowed all the humiliation down. Too bad it's not the old days anymore. You slowly lifted your head. There was no angry roar on your face. No tears of humiliation either. Only a terrifying sense of calm. Your terrifyingly dark eyes looked like two abysses that swallow light. The next second, without any warning, a dull, loud bang exploded in the hallway. You slightly lowered your body. Your right leg instantly turned into a nearly invisible whip-like shadow. A heavy, powerful front kick landed squarely on Zhao Ze's lower abdomen. That kick was too fast and too hard. The sneer on Zhao Ze's face didn't even have time to fade. His whole body was like being hit head-on by a high-speed rampaging ferocious beast. His body curled up like a shrimp. He violently spewed out gastric acid and bile. Then his feet left the ground. He flew backwards over 3 full meters with a loud crashing sound. His back slammed hard into the hallway bulletin board. The entire tempered glass shattered instantly. Countless shards flew everywhere. The whole place went dead silent instantly. No one expected you to fight back. Even less did they expect that you would kick Zhao Ze into this state with one blow. Zhao Ze was like a pile of mud, sliding down from the pile of broken glass. He curled up on the ground, his face deathly pale. He was in so much pain he couldn't even let out a full scream. You just slowly withdrew your foot, still standing in the same spot, as if that kick just now didn't send a person flying, but was just you casually brushing off dust. But this was far from over. In the crowd behind Zhao Ze, a perpetually silent middle-aged man with a crew cut suddenly stepped forward. His temples were bulging noticeably. His aura suddenly flared up all over his body. The floor tiles under his feet even cracked from the force he exerted. Class D strength type awakened. This was the bodyguard the Zhao family assigned specifically to Zhao Ze. He was also a ruthless character who retired from the military system for real. Kid, you've got some real nerve. With a loud roar, the bodyguard charged forward like a cannonball. His fist as big as a saucepan ripped through the air with a sharp whistle. It went straight for your face. All the surrounding students panicked immediately. Screams, sobs, and the sound of people retreating mixed together. because everyone knew that for a strength type awakened. At this level, breaking bones with a single punch was not an exaggeration in the slightest. But you didn't step back. Not only did you not retreat, you moved forward the moment the fist was about to touch. The tip of your nose, to be precise. You weren't charging head on. You were like a drop of water, slipping weirdly into the opponent's embrace. You immediately got within 1 meter of him. The bodyguard was stunned at first. Then he sneered. Because in his opinion, close combat is exactly what strength type awakened are best at. So he immediately withdrew his fist and changed his move, slamming his arms together towards the middle. He wanted to squeeze you bones and internal organs, all together into powder. Too bad he had no idea what being within 1 meter of you meant. It's not close combat, it's an execution. An invisible spatial fluctuation flashed by. You didn't even make any unnecessary movements. You just silently thought in your mind, spatial storage, open. The edges covered the joints of both arms, then the space retracted. After a teeth-chattering crisp crack, all teachers and students of the school witnessed the most unforgettable scene of their lives. The bodyguard's 2 arms were an inch away from touching your body. Got cut clean off right at the elbow. The 2 thick severed limbs with forearms and fists still held the grabbing pose, and suddenly separated from his body just like that, then thudded twice onto the floor tiles. The cuts were as smooth as mirrors. There was dead silence at first, then bright red blood seemed to be delayed for half a second, before spurting out from those 2 eerily smooth cuts, and instantly splattered a large fan-shaped stain on the white corridor wall. The bodyguard looked down at his empty elbows, then at the 2 twitching severed arms on the ground. The vicious look on his face froze completely, until the next second. When the excruciating pain finally hit his brain, he let out a sharp, inhuman scream, and thudded to his knees on the ground, rolling around like livestock waiting to be slaughtered. At this moment, the whole corridor was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was stunned, because they didn't even see what you did clearly. They didn't even pick up a trace of obvious ability fluctuation at all. A D-class power type awakened, just lost both his arms like that. And you just calmly stepped over, the bodyguard wailing in the pool of blood, and walked towards Zhaoze step by step. Right at this moment, Zhaoze was completely terrified out of his wits. His face was as pale as paper. He scrambled backward on all fours. His crotch soon got soaked. He had actually lost control of his bladder from fear. You walked up to him and stopped. Then under hundreds of pairs of panicked, awed, and shocked gazes, you slowly lifted your foot and slammed your faded cheap sneaker hard onto Zhaoze's swollen, twisted face. You ground his head hard against the cold floor covered with broken glass shards. Humiliation. Unprecedented humiliation. You looked down at the face under your feet. That was distorted with fear. Your voice wasn't loud, but like the cold current from the far north, it clearly reached the ears of everyone present. Your recommendation spot. I don't care about it at all. At the national exam, I will in front of everyone personally destroy everything you're proud of. After saying that, you slowly lifted your foot. You didn't even bother to glance at him again. You turned around and bent down, picking up the national exam registration form for social dancer that was covered. With footprints from the ground, you gently patted the dust off it. Then you slung your old school bag over your shoulder and strode down the path everyone automatically made way for you. Sunlight streamed through the corridor windows, stretching your shadow very long, lonely and silent, yet carrying an oppressive aura that people almost dared not look directly at. At the same time, in the principal's office, the old principal was staring at the surveillance replay. His hands were shaking. The frame froze at the moment you cut off the bodyguard's arms. No obvious spiritual power leakage. No exaggerated energy fluctuations. Even the space ripples were so weak, they were almost negligible. The more low-key it was, the scarier the situation was, because this meant your ability wasn't released via attacking. It acted directly on the level of rules. The more the old principal watched, the more terrified he got. He didn't even hold his teacup steadily, and it fell and shattered on the floor. This is not a level 1 storage space at all. This is the manifestation of the space law. At this moment, he finally realized that Zhang City had produced a real monster, so he immediately pressed the emergency button and ordered that the 3-minute surveillance footage of you be classified as S-level top secret. Seal all original data. No one is allowed to access it. Not just that. He also asked to pull all your files from the past 3 years. He obviously wanted to thoroughly reevaluate you, a student, who was originally considered a loser by everyone, but the school had just realized your value, while the Zhao family already had the real intention to kill you. In the Zhao family villa, The atmosphere under the luxurious crystal chandelier was as oppressive as an ice cellar. Zhao Zi, with his swollen face, lay on the sofa screaming for revenge, saying he wanted you to die a horrible death. Zhao Qiong stood in front of the French window, listened to the whole story without saying a word. Then he directly dialed an encrypted call. The person on the other end was called Hound. That was a desperado squad that specialized in doing dirty and illegal jobs in the wilderness area. Chao Shong offered 10 million star coins right away to buy your life, but after learning that you disabled a D-class bodyguard's arms in just one face-off, Hound immediately raised the price, asking for another 5 million to upgrade their equipment. They also made it clear that they would only make it look like an accident, and the body would be cleaned up by exotic beasts in the end. The military won't notice anything wrong, Zhao Shong agreed without a single hesitation. From his point of view, no matter what kind of monster you are, once you step into the wilderness, you'll end up as a corpse torn to shreds by wild beasts sooner or later. 3 days later, there were only 2 weeks left until the National Superpower exam. The Jiangcheng Military and the Education Bureau jointly organized the last large-scale actual combat trial. It was held right at Wilderness Area number 07 outside the city. The reason this trial made all senior high school students go crazy is not only that it directly affects your exam scores, but also that the military offered extremely generous rewards, especially the prize for first place. A priceless Tier 3 energy core, that's enough to make any awakened person jealous. The playground was packed with military hover buses. Students gathered in small groups, feeling a mix of excitement, nervousness, and anticipation. You, on the other hand, carried a worn tactical backpack and stood alone in the corner, totally out of place with everyone around you. After that fight in the hallway the other day, no one dared come within 3 meters of you. You were like a block of ice. And also like a black hole, making people instinctively feel awe and instinctively stay away. Right at that moment, a super eye-catching figure walked through the crowd and stopped right in front of you. Su Hui, the campus belle of Jiangcheng number 1 high school, and also the recognized top genius. Awakened in S-class ice ability, has always been the center of crowds and praise. She wore a tight white combat suit. Her ice blue long hair stood out sharply in the sun. She looked like a beautiful yet sharp ice blade. She looked at you. Her tone carried a hint of reminder and a bit of habitual condescension. The wilderness area isn't the school hallway. You're only E-class. You better stick with the main group. Don't throw your life away just to show off. From her perspective, this might count as kindness. But for you, this kind of kindness built on the idea that, I'm better than you so you should listen to me, is annoying as hell on its own. So you just glanced up at her and coldly replied with 2 words. Annoying. Susua froze on the spot. She obviously didn't expect that she'd humbled herself to warn you, only to get those 2 words in return. So anger rushed up to her head immediately. She turned around and left with a cold face, leaving a comment. Ungrateful jerk. I want to see how you mess up in there. You just lowered your head again, like nothing had happened at all. For you, irrelevant people and irrelevant words are nothing but noise to begin with. Soon the hover bus passed through the huge Alloy City gate and drove into Wilderness Area number 07. This place is a totally different world from the city. Giant mutated trees reaching up to the clouds, thick, tangled vines, damp, stinky air, and the feeling of being watched everywhere in the dark. Almost everything here reminds people this isn't a training ground. It's a place where you can actually lose your life. The instructor gave an order. Thousands of students immediately rushed into the jungle. Most people were smart enough to team up right away, grouping up in teams of 10 or dozens, carefully hunting Tier 1 exotic beasts in the outer area. After all, for average senior high students, Tier 1 exotic beasts like horned wolves and ironhide pigs are dangerous enough. But you didn't join any team. The second you stepped into the jungle, you separated from the crowd and walked alone deep into the woods, heading straight for the area marked bright red on the map, the Tier 2 exotic beast active zone. Other people fear danger, so they team up. What you want is efficiency. The woods were dimly lit. Normal people have to watch out every few steps for something jumping out from behind trees, but your mental power had already spread out, like an invisible radar. Within 100 meters around you, nothing can escape your perception. So the hunt began. 30 meters to your front left, a Tier 2 venomous python coiled on a tree, flicking its tongue, waiting for prey to come to it. You didn't even stop walking. The moment you passed by it, you opened and closed your space ability, and its head was gone. A Tier 2 sharp-clawed cat that was eating remains, was super fast, with amazing pouncing ability. but it had just jumped out of the bushes. Before it even hit the ground, its head vanished out of thin air in midair. Only its headless body rolled away with inertia. Then there was the creature known for its strong defense, the Tier 2 rock pangolin. Its shell was hard enough to withstand ordinary knives and axes, but it had barely popped half its body out of the ground, before its armor and flesh were cut clean in half by the space. Every time you take down one beast, you toss out the crystal core casually and drop it into your storage space. Your moves are skilled, calm, and efficient, with barely any wasted movement. And on your military points wristband, the numbers are jumping up rapidly. 17203755180 on the big screen of the trial command center. Your name is soaring like a rocket, skyrocketing from outside the thousands rank, and quickly breaking into the top 100, and it's still climbing non-stop. But right when you take down another venomous python, the second you grab the crystal core in your hand, the icy dread of being locked on by extreme danger burst out from your spine all of a sudden. You didn't even think. Your body's instinct reacted faster than your consciousness. You threw yourself forward hard and rolled into the nearby bushes. Almost at the exact same moment, a large caliber sniper bullet as thick as a thumb came whizzing past with a sharp, piercing shriek, right past the spot where you were just standing, and slammed hard into the giant tree behind you that needed 3 people to wrap their arms around. Boom! The tree trunk exploded on the spot, and wood chips flew everywhere. This shot wasn't even at trial level. It was a professional hunt. You knelt halfway in the shadow of the bushes. Your gaze was as cold as ice. Large caliber armor-piercing bullet, precise sniping from 1,000 meters away. Plus this ambush route that was clearly planned in advance. Other than the Zhao family, you can't think of any other possibility. They want to get rid of you, then none of them get to leave alive. On the hilltop 1,000 meters away, the sniper was also frowning. He thought this was going to be an easy, incredibly effortless mission. But that evasive move you just pulled was way too professional for a student. It was more like a wolf that had survived in the wild for years. Right after that, the hyena squad started closing in the encirclement. 5 people split into left and right flanks plus the front to push forward, trying to trap you in a small area as fast as possible. But they thought they were the ones hunting. Little did they know real hunters never wait to die in the center of an encirclement. Your mental power had already locked onto all of them beforehand, all 5 of their positions, distances, and movement trails, so you didn't run away at all. You instead stuck to the shadows of the ground and vegetation, and cut ghost-like in the opposite direction into the thinnest side of their encirclement. The first one to fall was number 3. That guy was holding a tactical rifle, carefully clearing the area ahead of him. He had no idea the danger wasn't coming from the front. It was coming from above. Right when he walked past a huge old tree, you were already hanging upside down like a bat from the shadows of the tree canopy. He just barely lifted his head. You were already within 1 meter of him. The space opened up, covering his helmet and head. Then it closed. The sound was so soft it was almost inaudible. That hyena squad member didn't even get a chance to yell out a single alert. Everything above his neck disappeared completely. You held up his body casually and leaned it gently against the tree, not even making a sound when it touched the ground. Soon, number 4 was sent to check the situation. He immediately spotted the body in that weird position, with nothing where its neck should be. In that instant, he was completely stunned. Even his report had an obvious tremble to it, but right when he was distracted for that split second, you cut in again from the shadow at his side and flashed past and took off his head again. In just 1 minute, the hyena squad had already lost 2 men, and both were executed silently. Now even the battle hardened. Hyena squad captain was truly panicking. He finally realized that the target he took this mission to kill wasn't some random school kid at all. It was a devil that could silently take lives in the shadows. So he immediately roared and ordered everyone to gather around him. At the same time, he fully unleashed his ability, C-Class Wind ability, Windblade Storm. In an instant, countless high-speed spinning cyan wind blades slashed out in all directions. Old trees, vines, bushes were all cut to pieces like paper. Large areas of hiding spots were forcibly cleared into a messy, empty lot, and you finally appeared in his field of vision. A ferocious, crazy laugh immediately appeared on the captain's face, thinking he had finally cornered you. At the same time, the sniper 1,000 meters away who had been locking onto this area immediately nailed his crosshair right between your eyebrows and pulled the trigger without hesitation again. Bang! This was a perfect kill angle, but you didn't dodge. Right as that custom armor-piercing bullet was about to touch your skin, The swirling air pressure had already ruffled the short hairs on your forehead at that exact moment. 1 centimeter in front of the center of your eyebrows, a tiny, almost invisible, storage space quietly opened up, so that bullet strong enough to pierce tank armor, along with all the devastating kinetic energy it carried, was completely swallowed by the space in an instant. No explosion, no deflection, not even a single decent ripple. The storm died down, dust slowly settled. In the middle of the open ground, you were still standing there quietly, completely unharmed. This sight made the Hound captain's mind go totally blank for a second. You slowly turned your head, your gaze traveling over 1,000 meters, landing right on the hill where the sniper was hiding. Your thin lips parted slightly. You only spat out 3 words, back at you. The next second, the void in front of you opened again. The bullet that was just trapped in the space flew out at the exact same speed it was fired, and the exact same angle, along the original path from the space. The sniper on the hill didn't even have time to react. He only saw a fast-expanding black dot suddenly appear in his scope, then bang. The high-precision sniper rifle in his hand, and custom scope shattered on the spot. The bullet he fired with his own hands pierced right into his right eye, blowing his entire head clean off. Only a short scream came through the comms channel. Then it went completely silent. At this moment, the Hound captain finally realized he hadn't messed with some slightly skilled student. He'd messed with a monster. So his first thought wasn't to fight back, it was to run. He unleashed his wind ability with all his might. Strong winds gathered under his feet. He turned around to dash backward, and at the same time he conjured his strongest defense, the wind barrier, in front of him. But here's the thing. Wind is an element, but space is the rule that carries all elements. In front of true spatial law, his wind wall, strong enough to deflect artillery shells, was no thicker than a sheet of paper. You just walked right through it. No resistance. No delay. Like walking through a curtain of water, and got within 1 meter of him directly. Then you raised your hand, closed the space around his head, squelch. His head flew off, his eyes still held, extreme shock and fear. As for his headless body, it froze in place for 2 seconds, before falling heavily to the ground with gushing bright red blood. All 5 members of the Hound squad were now dead, from the first shot fired to the captain getting beheaded. The whole process took less than 3 minutes. You didn't rush to loot the spoils. You checked the scene first, because you knew full well, for this kind of professional dirty work, the truly valuable stuff usually isn't in the guns or the backpacks. It's in the communication records. Sure enough, you soon pulled out from the captain's tactical vest a military comms device that was still glowing faintly. The second you picked it up, Zhao Xiong's anxious, gloomy voice came through. Hound, did you get it done? Did you use the beast lure crate I told you to prepare? If you throw that thing on him, all Tier 2 exotic beasts within 5 kilometers will be lured here. He'll be gone with no remains left. The military will just classify it as an accident. Hearing this, your movement stopped, but the emotion churning in your eyes was no longer just killing intent, because you finally realized what the Zhao family was planning this time was never just to kill you out in the wilderness. Their real plan was to use beast lure incense to turn the entire outer trial area into a slaughterhouse, then use the lives of tons of examinees to pave a dazzling enough path for Zhao's glamorous enough path to first place. In other words, they wanted to step on everyone's lives, to let Zhao's take the top spot. You crushed the comms device easily, then turned and rummaged through the Hound captain's backpack, and soon, a few almost completely burned. Only short stubs left of dark red incense heads appeared in your hand. That sickly, sweet, nauseating smell confirmed Zhao Xiong's words almost immediately. High concentration beast lure incense. And there was more than one stick. The Zhao family was insane. At that exact moment, the ground started shaking violently. Not a small tremor, but like an earth dragon was turning over. Even the dirt and leaves underfoot were bouncing. Right after that, deafening beast roars came from all directions. Giant trees topple down in droves. Dust and smoke billow into the sky. Countless pairs of blood-red beast eyes glow in the forest. They're charging wildly toward the outer trial zone. This beast tide, sparked by human folly, is a terrifying horde way above this trial's difficulty level. With your current strength, you can totally get out of here right now. All you have to do is hide. No mutant beast will find you easily. But here's the thing. If the beast tide breaks through the outer camp and causes heavy casualties among examinees, then this nationally watched ability exam will most likely be postponed, or even canceled entirely. If that happens, all the plans you had, crushing Zhao Ze in front of everyone, taking first place, and grabbing that Tier 3 energy core will be completely ruined by the Zhao family. That being the case, this beast tide, there's no way you'll stand by. Your path. No one can stand in your way. Not the Zhao family. And not these beasts either. So you don't back down. Instead, you charge straight toward that all-devouring flood of mutant beasts. Head on. At the same time, Outer Zone C of Wilderness Area Number 7 is in total chaos. Sushi is holding the line with a dozen students. She keeps putting up ice walls, barely holding off the first wave of horned wolves and ironhide hogs. But those ice walls are soon covered in cracks. Beasts outside ram and bite at the walls like crazy. All the students are deathly pale. They're clearly at their breaking point. Someone is crying and screaming. What do we do? Others panickedly mention Zhao Ze. Didn't he always brag about being a strong powerhouse? Where is he when we actually need him? Then a girl yells through her sobs. Don't count on him. When the horned wolf lunged at us just now, he pushed Li Ming out to block it and ran for his life. Those words completely snuff out. The last bit of hope everyone had. Zhao Zi, that cocky rich kid who always strutted around and fawned over Sushi nonstop. When faced with actual life or death, the first thing he thought to do was trade a classmate's life for time to escape. Su Hui is furious and shocked. But she has no time to curse him out. The next wave of attacks is already here. Seeing the ice walls are about to shatter completely, she forces herself to overdraw her abilities. She presses her hands to the ground and unleashes her big AoE trump card. Ice Age. In an instant, an icy blue cold wave blasts out. The area 100 meters ahead is instantly covered in frost. Over a dozen charging Tier 1 mutant beasts are frozen solid into ice sculptures. She manages to hold the situation off for a moment. But a skill of this caliber, for her right now, is way too much of a strain. Right after the skill ends, she suddenly coughs up a mouthful of blood and drops to one knee. Her face is deathly pale. Her powers are almost completely drained and, right when she's completely exhausted, boom! The ground ahead bursts open violently. Dirt and rocks fly into the sky. A creature over 15 meters long, covered entirely in thick black armor, looks like a prehistoric crocodile with a vicious horn on its head. The terrifying beast bursts out from underground. Tier 3 commander-level mutant beast, ironclad earth dragon. The second it shows up, all the students fall into despair. Because this is absolutely not something a senior high trial should ever have. It's also not something that this group of students who already have been pushed to their limit by Tier 1 beasts can handle. Suka knows this too. Her abilities are completely drained. She's so weak she can't even lift a finger. She can only watch as the ironclad earth dragon lowers its massive head, opens its fanged mouth and bites down hard at her. A strong stench of blood hits her in the face. Death is right in front of her. She closes her eyes in despair. Just then, whoosh! A black shooting star tears through the dim sky above the forest. It falls from dozens of meters high in the treetops in a way that defies the laws of physics. Thud! A deafening crash that shakes the ground again. The black shadow, like a meteor, slams down hard half a meter in front of Sushui. Violent shockwaves mixed with broken dirt explode out in all directions. It even knocks the ironclad earth dragon's massive head rearing back from the impact. Sushu's eyes fly open. All she sees is a figure's back. It's not a bulky build, but it feels like it can hold up the entire sky. He was carrying a faded school bag. Standing there quietly, at his feet was a terrifying half-meter deep pit. Right next to his foot was the huge fanged mouth of the armored earth dragon. It was inches away from Lin An. It felt like time had hit the pause button right then. The strong wind blew your bangs up. You were still holding the standard alloy combat knife, seized from the Hound Captain's belongings. That back figure clearly wasn't that tall, but it was like a mountain, standing firmly between Sushui and that Tier 3 commander, blocking all the bloody chaos behind him. Sushui was stunned at first. Then her face changed drastically, and she screamed out loud. Lin An, are you crazy? Run. That's a Tier 3 commander-level mutant beast. Even armor-piercing rounds can't break through its defense. You're gonna get killed. But you didn't even look back. The armored earth dragon was obviously completely enraged. It opened its mouth and roared. The sound wave knocked all the surrounding students unconscious. Then its bone-covered giant tail swept over like a huge steel whip. Giant trees and rocks along the way burst one after another, crushing everything in its path. If you fight it head-on, you'll definitely lose. But if you retreat, everyone behind you will be doomed too. In the blink of an eye, you already made your judgment in your head. The 1 cubic meter space can't fit the entire head of this giant beast. Regular cuts barely do anything to it. To take it down, You have to strike at its weakest spot. Go straight for the vital point. So, the second the steel whip-like dragon tail was about to hit you, you bent your waist back sharply, at an unbelievable angle. You dodged the attack, barely missing the tip of your nose. Then instead of stepping back, you pushed off with both legs from that position and charged straight at the armored earth dragon like a reverse-firing cannonball. Sushu's face went pale with fear as she watched. In her eyes, this wasn't fighting back at all. It was suicide. Sure enough, the armored earth dragon missed its first strike and lifted its small truck-sized giant claw to stomp down on you. But right when the shadow completely covered you, you lowered your charging body sharply and slid through the gap under the falling giant claw and barely slipped right under its belly. Boom! The giant claw hit the ground. A deep pit exploded on the ground immediately. Suju saw this scene through the gaps between her fingers and was completely stunned. Of course, she knew the belly was the relatively weakest part of the armored earth dragon, but that was only relatively speaking. The scales there were still ridiculously thick. Normal attacks can't break through them at all, but you weren't planning to break the armor in the first place. The space under the giant beast's belly was narrow. Stinky slime mixed with dirt kept dripping down. You steadied yourself and casually threw away the alloy combat knife. That was now completely useless. Then you lifted your head and locked firmly onto it with your perception, the violently beating heart inside its body. The next second, you slowly raised your hands and slammed them onto the cold, hard scales. It wasn't a slash. It wasn't a charged attack. It was an almost eerie touch, in complete silence. Spatial fluctuations penetrated the scales and opened directly inside the armored earth dragon's chest cavity. Your eyes were as cold as a judge's. Shatter now. The command fell. The 1 cubic meter absolute dark space precisely, wrapped around that car-sized heart, and closed tightly. An extremely dull, cutting sound came from inside its body. The armored earth dragon's thunderous roar stopped abruptly. Its huge body stiffened suddenly. The cruelty and madness in its scarlet tree-like pupils faded quickly, leaving only a kind of instinctive confusion and fear of life. It looked completely unharmed on the outside, but it could clearly feel that the source of all its power had suddenly disappeared, and you had already taken advantage of the moment it stiffened and slid out from under its belly, without even looking back. 2 seconds later, boom, that hill-sized steel giant beast completely lost its support and collapsed with a loud crash. Even the ground trembled from the impact. Amidst the swirling dust, Sushuo stared blankly at the Tier 3 commander, which had no external wounds but was already completely dead. It felt like her soul had been sucked out. Her Ice Age ability couldn't even slow it down for a second. But you, who everyone mocked as a level 1 useless talent, killed it instantly with just one touch. This wasn't just a gap in strength anymore. This was something she couldn't understand at all. And you had already walked to the side of the mutant beast. With a flick of your mind, a huge dragon heart that was the size of a tire and had a mirror-smooth cut on the top fell to the muddy ground with a plop. You slip your hand inside with a stony face. Soon you pull out a fist-sized, jet-black, rhombic crystal with lava-like flow inside. Tier 3, Commander-Grade Earth Dragon Core. Suju finally barely regains her senses, her voice hoarse. Lin-An, what the hell are you? But you just glance at her coldly. Get out of the way. Those 3 words immediately shut down all her questions. Then you grab the ferocious single horn of the armored earth dragon. You take a deep breath and actually drag the dozens of ton giant beast up with brute force, walking step by step towards the training camp. That not particularly burly back figure, dragging a mountain-like giant beast in the dim woods and amid endless beast roars. Looks like a painting of a god or demon descending to earth. Sushu stares at the scene in a daze. Then she thinks of Zhao Ze, who abandoned classmates to run for life mid-battle. Her disgust and contempt almost reach the peak. At the same time, your back figure is also like a brand that sears deep into her mind. Meanwhile, the temporary camp in Wilderness Area Number 7 is already in total chaos. The outer defense line is on the verge of collapse. Soldiers are desperately organizing students to retreat. Inside the command post, the colonel stares at the radar, where large swathes of red dots keep approaching. His face is pale with rage, furiously berating the intelligence department. Right at this moment, Zhao scrambles and stumbles in, falling flat to the ground. He sobs and shouts loudly, "Sir, I know how the beast tide started. It's Lin-An! That useless level 1 did it!" The colonel frowns, telling him to explain clearly, so Zhao immediately starts twisting the truth, saying you got high-concentration beast-attracting incense from somewhere. Threw it everywhere. and even threatened to take everyone down with you. In other words, he wants to take the chance that you're dead in the beast tide, to dump all the blame on you, and paint himself as the hero who revealed the truth. Seeing the colonel's face getting gloomier and gloomier, Zhaoze feels secretly delighted. He is just about to add fuel to the fire, when right at this moment, a set of heavy footsteps that shake the ground comes from the camp entrance. Thud, thud, thud. The sound gets closer and closer, like every step is stomping on everyone's heart. Soon the fog is slowly torn apart. In the horrified gaze of everyone present, you hold the mountain-like Tier 3 commander, armored Earth Dragon's huge body with one hand, and walk into the camp step by step. You are covered in mud all over, your face cold and detached, like a demon god just walked out of purgatory. You ignore all the stares and walk straight up to Zhao Zi. Then you lift the Hound Squad tactical backpack in your other hand, along with the communicator you crushed into scrap metal, and slam them hard at his feet. The Zhao family owes me an explanation. Are these things yours? Dead silence falls over the camp, as if all sound is sucked out instantly. The grief and indignation on Zhao Zi's face freezes immediately. It is replaced by sheer terror. His face turns as pale as a ghost's. He even blurts out, "You're alive?" Only then does he realize he basically confessed without being forced. You don't bother paying attention to him. You kick the backpack open with your foot. The burnt dark red incense end, the Hound Squad captain's ID badge, and the communicator that's still glinting slightly, all roll out together. Right after that, you press the play button. Zhao Xiong's gloomy and urgent voice immediately uses the speaker function to echo across the entire camp. Just throw that thing on him. All level 2 exotic beasts within 10 li will be drawn here. He'll be torn to pieces with nothing left, and the military will just classify it as an accident. The evidence is irrefutable. The crowd erupts instantly. The Zhao family really did it. They hired killers to hurt people. They even wanted to kill all of us. Zhao Zi is such a scumbag. The colonel's face turns extremely ugly at this moment. But Zhao Zi still won't give up. He collapses on the ground and screams, "How can a level 1 like you possibly take down the Hound Squad and drag back the body of a Tier 3 Earth Dragon? This is all a frame-up." Hearing this, you finally sneer level 1. You lift your hand, showing a stained student monitoring wristband. You mean to tell me a level 1 just happened to pick up the evidence of your crime? The next second, you forcefully crack the wristband's access permission. A video is projected onto the giant screen in the command post. In the video, a horned wolf pounces forward. Instead of saving anyone, Zhao Zi grabs Li Ming, who's next to him, and shoves him in front to block the wolf, then runs for his life without looking back. The final shot freezes on his face, contorted by excitement into a ferocious, hideous look. If the audio recording only made everyone angry, this footage completely ignited their killing intent. Zhao Zi, give my brother's life back. This scumbag doesn't deserve to live. Right at this very moment, Sushu also rushed over, supported by several female classmates. Her face was pale as a sheet, but she still gritted her teeth to testify in public. I can prove Zhao Zi abandoned his classmates in danger and ran for his life alone. It was Lin An who saved all of us too. With the public testimony of an S-tier genius, Zhao Zi's last chance to struggle was completely crushed. The colonel took a deep breath and turned around abruptly, ordered the enforcement team to arrest Zhao Zi and take him into custody. He will be transferred to the military court for the highest level trial. Zhao Zi completely broke down, screaming shrilly for his dad, right as the enforcement team was about to grab him. Who dares to touch my son? A thunderous roar exploded out of nowhere, a terrifying 5th-tier pressure that made the air freeze, swept across the entire venue with a bang. Almost all the students dropped to their knees in unison. The weaker ones even passed out on the spot. Immediately afterwards, a luxuriously dressed middle-aged figure appeared right in front of Zhao Zi in a flash and pulled him behind to protect him. It was Zhao Xiong, the head of the Zhao family. He didn't even glance at the evidence on the ground, but stared straight at you instead, with killing intent surging in his eyes. You little brat, how dare you slander my son and ruin the Zhao family's reputation. No one can save you today. Before he finished speaking, a giant energy claw swiped hard at the top of your head. Is 5th tier that strong? You stood right where you were, with not a single trace of fear in your eyes. All you felt was destructive urge after being completely provoked. The space in front of your eyebrows started to twist quietly. You were ready to risk getting seriously injured, just to cripple one of Zhao Xiong's arms first. But right at this critical moment, a harsh, "How dare you?" roar, way more overbearing than Zhao Xiong's, burst out right in front of you all of a sudden. No one knew when. The colonel had already stood in front of you to block you. He didn't use any fancy moves. He just threw a simple, plain punch. As a result, Zhao Xiong's giant energy claw shattered inch by inch on the spot. The terrifying punch force went straight into Zhao Xiong's chest, sending him flying backwards, spitting out liquid from his mouth. He crashed through several military tents before falling down in embarrassment. One punch crippled a 5th tier. He's 6th tier. The colonel slowly retracted his fist. His gaze was frighteningly cold. You dared to openly attack a military. Witness and the top scorer of this trial, Zhao Xiong. Do you want the entire Zhao family to be buried with you? This one sentence completely finalized the fate of the Zhao father and son. Very soon, Zhao Xiong and Zhao Zi were dragged away like tattered sacks. As for the conspiracy carefully planned by the Zhao family, it was completely exposed in front of everyone. The entire camp fell dead silent. When all the students looked at you, their gazes had turned from shock to reverence, and even fear. When the colonel turned to look at you, the anger in his eyes had completely faded away, replaced by undisguised admiration and fervor. Lin An, you killed the 3rd-tier leader Armored Earth Dragon, exposed the criminal, and saved your classmates. You have made outstanding contributions. After a unanimous decision by the command, you are the champion of this joint trial. As he said that, he took a special metal box from his adjutant and handed it to you. This is your reward. A 3rd-tier Earth Dragon energy core. Then he threw out an invitation that was enough to drive countless people crazy with excitement. Also, I formally invite you on behalf of the Eastern Military Region. Would you be interested in skipping all the procedures and joining the Kanglong Special Forces directly? You took the box, feeling the surging energy inside it. The weight on your mind finally eased a little, but right after, you still lifted your head and shook your head slowly. I'm sorry. Sir, before I join the army, I have to use this to save my little sister's life first. You raced all the way back to the First Central Hospital. But fate seemed to be making fun of you on purpose. When you pushed open the ICU ward door, the scene you expected of your little sister sleeping peacefully was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there were ear-splitting, deafening alarm beeps. The ward was as cold as an ice cellar, and the Lin Xia on the hospital bed was covered in a layer of visible frost. Even the metal guardrails and the edges of the bedding had grown hideous ice flowers. Her lips were purple, and the rise and fall of her chest was so weak it was almost gone. All the readings on the monitor were flashing red like crazy. A loud buzz went off in your head, and you rushed to the attending doctor, your voice hoarse. What's going on? She was fine when I left, wasn't she? The doctor was covered in cold sweat, speaking so fast he could barely catch his breath. It's mutated. The Abyss Frost syndrome in your sister's body suddenly mutated malignantly. That cold air seems to have its own consciousness, rejecting and devouring all external energy. The mild energy solution we tried to inject just now was all frozen completely. At this point, he glances at the metal case in your hand. His eyes look like he's seen a lifeline, and also a death warrant at the same time. The energy of the level 3 Earth Dragon core is way too violent. Using it now won't save her. It'll be like pouring water into boiling oil, and instantly detonate the cold energy inside her, and turn her into ice crystals right on the spot. These words almost completely shattered all the hope you fought so hard for along the way. You freeze on the spot! You slowly look at the little girl, on the hospital bed with frost on her eyelashes. All emotion drains from your face, leaving only a calmness after utter dead silence. So what do we do? The doctor swallows hard, and gives the only possible answer. Within 3 days, you have to find a level 4 Ice Soul Crystal core, with perfectly matching attributes and purest possible energy. Only it can soothe the mutated cold energy inside her instead of fighting it. To give her a fighting chance. 3 days, level 4 Ice Soul Crystal core. That's harder than just dying. Level 4. Crystal cores are already strategic supplies. Not to mention Ice Soul Crystal cores are extremely rare top-tier ones even among same-level cores. They're basically impossible to find on the open market. Even if the military armory has some, there's no way you can get your hands on them right now. So you don't waste time asking more questions. You just quietly walk out of the ward and stand at the end of the hallway, take out that old black cell phone, and send an encrypted message. Level 4 Ice Soul Crystal Core. Time limit, 3 days. No limit on cost. The phone replies almost instantly. None on open market. 3 in military armory. Insufficient permissions. Cannot redeem. Only clue tonight. Jiangcheng Underground. Shura Field 100-man slash. Grand prize for challenge winner. Shura Field is the bloodiest and craziest lawless zone in Jiangcheng's underground world. 100-man slash. In one night, you fight 100 desperados picked from prisons, battlefields, and wastelands in a row. Fight to the death. No breaks in between. Only 3 people have succeeded in 100 years. The challenge failure rate is almost 100%, but you glance at the ICU door. With the red light on behind it, all hesitation in your eyes vanishes, since there's no other choice. Then I'll fight my way out. Midnight, old industrial zone. The inside of an abandoned steel smelter has been converted into a huge underground arena. The air reeks of sweat, alcohol, and other nasty smells. Heavy metal music is deafening. Thousands of spectators are screaming like crazy. You're wearing that pale, stiff, smiling mask when you walk into the backstage registration area. The burly man in charge of registration, with a scorpion tattoo, just glances at you, then sneers and tells you to get lost. Says this is sure a field, not a playground for kids to play house. You don't waste words with him. You just pick up the stained life and death contract, then bite down hard on your own thumb. Blood gushes out. You expressionlessly press that warm, bloody fingerprint hard on the signature line. Then you look up, stare at him through the stiff smiling mask, cut the crap. Get 100 guys ready, all at once or one by one. That burly man has been in Shura Field for over 10 years. He's seen desperados, and he's seen lunatics, but that look from you still sends a chill down his spine. He doesn't even say another word, just hands you a black number plate, 95227. Then you turn and walk towards the iron door leading to hell. First opponent is Black Ape, level 2 peak beast type ability user, over 2.5 meters tall, covered in black fur, incredibly strong, known for being brutal. The audience was originally jeering and laughing, thinking a skinny guy like you isn't even enough to fill his teeth. But as soon as the referee yells start, Black Ape roars and lunges at you, his giant paw almost ready to smash your head on the spot. But the second before he touches you, you just step slightly to the side and brush past his huge body. After a soft crack, Black Ape slams into the iron cage, then under thousands of gazes, his head, still twisted in a ferocious grin, slides cleanly off his neck. Blood sprays high into the air. The whole arena goes dead silent first, then erupts completely. The name 9527 echoes through Shura Field for the first time. Then right after second fight, 5th, 10th, 37th, everyone gradually realized what they were watching wasn't a match at all. It was a one-sided slaughter. A speed-type ability user darted around as a blurry shadow, but the second he got close to you, his body was split right in half. A fire manipulator spread flames all over the sky. But you just walked through it like it was a gentle curtain. The second you stepped in front of him, his head rolled right onto the ground. After that, no matter if it was brute force attacks, sneak attacks, long-range assaults, or group kills, the result was always the same. Killed with one single blow, no extra moves, no fancy clashes, not even a decent fight process. You just got close, and the opponent fell down right away, so the cheers from the audience got quieter and quieter. What replaced them was extremely suppressed, silence and the sound of people gasping in shock. Because everyone could tell, you weren't here to complete the 100-man challenge. You were here to clear the field, to slaughter everyone. When the 99th match ended, the referee announced the winner in a trembling voice. Contestant 95Ryu70. You were already standing in the middle of all the fallen people. The ground beneath your feet was all bright red. That pale smiling face mask you wore also had long been dyed dark red by liquid. And you stood there. Your breathing rate didn't even change at all. The entire Coliseum fell dead silent. At the same time, in the top floor luxury box, Master Jin, the owner of the Coliseum, had a terrifyingly dark face. That level 4 Ice Soul Crystal Core was originally owned by a big shot from the provincial capital, who left it here as a gimmick. No one ever planned to let anyone actually take it away. But now you've already got it almost in your pocket. Master Jin let out a cold sneer and directly pressed the red button on the wall. Activate the sweeper protocol. Send Titan out to fight. Rumble! Inside the octagon cage, the giant gate leading to the final challenge, made of special alloy, slowly rose up. A vicious aura 100 times more terrifying than all previous opponents combined, surged out like a tangible flood from the dark space behind the gate. A nearly 3-meter-tall giant, with muscles like cast steel, skin with a bronze metallic, Sheen walked out step by step. Every step he took made the entire octagon cage tremble slightly. In the audience stands, the silent crowd instantly burst into terrified screams. It's Titan, the indestructible Titan. Oh my God, wasn't he locked up at the bottom of the black prison? How did he get out? That mask guy is done for now. Titan once ripped apart a level 4 mutant beast. With his bare hands, he's a total monster. Titan walked to the center of the field, ignoring all the fallen people on the ground. His bell-sized eyes locked firmly onto you. He grinned, showing a set of sharp white teeth. His voice as harsh as scraping metal. "Kid, your killing spree ends here. Now it's my turn." Titan's voice sounded like rusted iron plates rubbing against each other. "Calm but scarier than a roar, kid. Your killing spree ends here. Now it's my turn." The audience went still for a second, then burst into even louder screams. Everyone recognized this nearly 3-meter-tall monster with a bronze metallic sheen all over. Sweeper Titan. The real ultimate hidden weapon of the Colosseum. Rumor has it his level 4 absolute hardening ability makes his body tougher than top-tier alloy armor. Ordinary cutting-type abilities don't work on him at all. But you didn't even bother to say a single word. The next second, your figure disappeared from where you stood. You reappeared ghostly right next to Titan's left side. The military dagger in your hand slashed a dark arc, heading straight for his neck. This blow even contained a trace of the most basic spatial compression power. Forget about flesh and blood. Even tank armor should be cut clean through. But clang. A harsh, sharp noise exploded out instantly. Sparks flew everywhere. The dagger in your hand that could cut through iron like butter shattered into pieces the second it touched his skin. As for Titan's neck, there was only a faint white mark that disappeared almost instantly. Titan finally laughed. His laughter was so loud it made the whole octagon cage shake. "Little bug, I told you. Your little cutting tricks don't work on me." Before he finished speaking, he threw a punch with his backhand. No fancy energy effects. No complicated moves either. Only pure power condensed to the extreme. Fast. Way too fast. You could clearly see his trajectory, but your body couldn't dodge completely in time. You could only cross your arms in front of your chest instantly. Bang. This punch hit like a full-speed maglev train ramming right at you, and slammed hard into your body. You were sent flying backward from the impact, and crashed straight into the alloy wire mesh. The mesh instantly bulged outward into a huge human-shaped dent. Right after that, a stream of liquid gushed out from under the edge of your mask, staining the combat uniform on your chest bright red. The entire venue went dead silent in an instant, before erupting into even crazier cheers right after. The crowd that had just witnessed you take down 99 fighters in a row were too terrified to even breathe a sound, suddenly found an outlet for all their pent-up emotions right now, and screamed their lungs out, waiting to see how you'd get completely crushed. In the private booth, Master Jin picked up his wine glass again, wearing a smug, contemptuous expression. In his eyes, you were just some guy who got lucky with weird, cheap tricks. Only Titan represented true, raw power. But you, leaning against the wire mesh, slowly wiped the liquid off the corner of your mouth, and your gaze remained ice cold, not a single flicker of emotion showing. You'd already come to a conclusion. Regular spatial cutting wasn't absolutely unbeatable. When a target's material density, energy, and structural strength exceeded a certain threshold, the shearing force from closing the space would be drastically weakened. Put it simply, cutting from the outside couldn't break through his defense in a short time at all. But here's the problem. You didn't have time to waste. Your little sister was still waiting for you in the hospital. The Tier 4. Ice Soul Crystal Core was right in front of you. If attacking from the outside wouldn't work, then you'd attack from the inside, so you straightened your body back up. When Titan saw this, a hint of mockery appeared in his eyes. "You can still move? Guess I held back too much just now." You still didn't say a word in response, and just charged straight at him again on your own initiative. To everyone watching, this was nothing more than a moth flying into a flame. Titan thought the same thing, so he didn't even bother throwing a punch this time. Instead, he grinned viciously and spread his arms open, planning to squeeze you to death on the spot. Crush every bone and organ in your body into powder. 10 meters, 5 meters, 3 meters. Right as the two of you were about to collide, your body suddenly dropped down low, ducking past his mountain-like chest that was barreling toward you. You moved like a slippery shadow and flashed right past his side. At the same time, you spread the 5 fingers of your right hand open and gently pressed it against his temple. The movement was even as soft as a lover's caress. The wild laugh on Titan's face hadn't even faded yet, while the only thing left in your eyes was extreme coldness and madness. Space open. This time you weren't cutting from the outside, nor closing the space to take his head off. You directly created a space inside his indestructible skull, in the core region of his brain that was protected by layers of thick cranial bone. You forcefully opened a cubic space with a side length of exactly 1 centimeter, It only existed for a split second, and then returned to its original state. The most fundamental law of the universe. In that tiny 1,000,000th of a second, it completed a full cycle of creation and annihilation. Titan froze completely. His eyes, expression, every movement were all frozen in place, and right after that, a trickle of bright red liquid slowly seeped out of his left ear. Then his right ear, nostrils, corners of his eyes, and mouth followed. 7 streams of blood trickled down his tanned face slowly, forming an extremely eerie pattern on his skin. The next second, thud, his mountain-like body fell straight backward and hit the octagon floor with a heavy thud. Tier 4 physical enhancement type ability user. The cleaner Titan died on the spot. The entire Shura pit was instantly put on mute. The music cut off. The screams stopped. Every single person's expression was frozen on their face. Thousands of pairs of eyes stared fixedly at the body with blood oozing out of all 7 orifices, then shifted to look at you standing nearby. No wounds. No prolonged fight. Just a single touch. And then a god fell. After a short moment of dead silence, a rich guy in the front row dropped his wine glass and it shattered on the floor, as if someone had flipped a switch. The entire venue exploded in chaos the next second. Countless audience members screamed and cried as they pushed toward the exits, desperate to escape this hellish place. But you ignored all the chaos around you. You lifted your head and looked through the crowd at the luxury booth on the top floor. Your voice was slightly hoarse from your injuries, but still cold and clear. 100 fights are over. Hand over the Tier 4 Ice Soul Crystal Core. As soon as the words left your mouth, everyone in the crowd froze for a second. That's right, you won. You completed the 100-man kill according to the rules. The prize should be yours. But Master Jin obviously never planned to follow the rules. He walked up to the microphone, his cold sneer spreading across the entire venue through the speakers. 9 South I-27, you really gave me a nice surprise. But do you actually think those petty tricks can fool every single person here? A Titan's body is tougher than warship armor, but it dropped dead without a sound. Not even a single visible wound on it. This is obviously either a curse-type ability or illegal neurotoxin, plain and simple. So you broke the rules, per the iron rules of the Shura Arena. If a challenger uses forbidden arts, your result is invalidated. Your prize gets confiscated. As soon as he said that, the whole arena erupted in uproar again. It's straight-up dirty dealing. Everyone caught on immediately. Lord Jin doesn't just want that crystal core anymore. He wants that weird secret art of yours that ignores defense and kills with a single strike. He wants to take both you and the power for himself. Then he added, pretending to be generous, "But I can spare your life. Hand over your secret art, and I'll let you live. I'll even make you my most prized attack dog under my command." You stand rooted to the spot and slowly lift your head. In that moment, the last shred of patience you had, for their rules shattered completely. You played by their stupid rules, fought your way through 100 opponents with blood and sweat, but now, the house tells you, you won, but I'm not honoring it. There's nothing left to talk about then. You just let out a soft chuckle. Lord Jin was clearly enraged by that laugh. He immediately ordered, "Take him down. Dead or alive, I don't care. I want his secrets." The next second, 8 alloy gates around the octagon lifted at the same time. Teams of fully armed, conglomerate private soldiers in black exoskeleton armor, carrying Gauss kinetic rifles, poured out of the darkness like a tidal wave. Dark gun barrels, scopes glowing with faint blue electricity, all locked onto you at the exact same time. There were a full 100 of them. Every single one was a seasoned veteran. The audience completely panicked. Survivors banged on the doors like crazy. Everyone knew that once the Shura Arena's cleaner units are deployed, this place turns into a slaughterhouse. You stood in the middle of the encirclement and slowly dropped the broken remains of your shattered dagger. If they don't play by the rules, then my rules are the only rules. Fire. At the captain's order, hundreds of Gauss rifles spat fire at the same time. Countless alloy rounds tore through the air, weaving a seamless web of death from every single direction, swallowing your figure completely in an instant. Smoke, fire, and screams exploded all at once. But when the gunfire stopped, you were still standing right where you were, completely unharmed. Within 1 meter around your body, space had warped into a weird shape that looked almost like a funhouse mirror. Thousands of alloy rounds strong enough to pierce tanks all got sucked into that warped space, floating mid-air like bugs trapped in amber. Their kinetic energy was forcefully stripped and trapped. After rubbing and squeezing against each other in the tight space, the rounds even started glowing bright red, buzzing nonstop. All the private soldiers froze. They've seen ballistic shields. They've seen energy shields. They've seen ability users tank bullets with their bodies, but they've never seen anyone stop bullets midair. This isn't defense. This is an absolute ban. You lift your hand and clench your fist lightly at the warped space holding that. Storm of death. Now it's my turn. The next second you spin around sharply, swinging your arm out. That ball of warped space holding thousands of glowing red rounds was flung straight at the densest group of soldiers on the left. At the same time, space snapped back to normal. All the stripped kinetic energy was released all at once. Zip, 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 zip! No gunshots, just the shrill sound of air being torn apart. The rounds flew back even faster. Then they were fired, forming a fan-shaped barrage of red light. Dozens of soldiers in the front line didn't even have time to react before they got torn apart. Exoskeleton armor, bones, flesh, all were completely useless in that moment. Huge clouds of red mist exploded outward, dyeing the whole battlefield blood red. The surviving soldiers were scared out of their minds. Some backed away. Some screamed. Some desperately threw out high-explosive grenades and Molotov cocktails, trying to take you out with even heavier fire. But you didn't even glance their way. Explosions, fire, shockwaves, flying shrapnel didn't hurt you at all. They all got swallowed by that warped space again. A cubic meter of space. At this moment seemed to have turned into a small star on the verge of going haywire. Its interior was packed with pure, violent, explosive energy. Then you charged right in. You walked through the sea of flames like it was a casual stroll. Approached the completely disorganized Sejun formation. Eyes locked on the captain who was trying to run away. Right after that, you released your hold on the space. Payback. Boom. The extremely compressed explosive energy released instantly and formed a sphere centered around you. Deadly fireball covering a range of over 10 meters that swept out in all directions. The dozen or so Sejun soldiers caught directly in the blast were vaporized on the spot along with their armor. Those on the outskirts were first set ablaze by the high temperature, then torn apart by countless high-speed shrapnel. Even their screams were blown to pieces. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was a massacre. Your space power here had directly become the scariest mobile armory ever. The stronger the enemy's firepower was, the deadlier the attack you sent right back at them. So-called numerical advantage, firepower suppression, are nothing but a joke in front of real space laws. Soon, the only sounds left in the venue were wails and crackling fires. The Sejun captain, who luckily survived the first blast, dragged his half-burned body and crawled towards the top floor box on all fours, crying and screaming for help. Inside the box, Master Jin had already collapsed onto the sofa, staring at the hell on earth shown on the monitor. Nothing but sheer terror was left on his face. Earlier, he thought you were just someone who knew some hidden killing moves. But now he finally realized the person he messed with wasn't just a crazy guy who knew secret arts, but a total straight-up monster. So he turned around to run immediately. But he had barely taken 2 steps when a loud bang came from behind him. The Sejun captain was like a tattered sack, kicked right through the box door, and rolled to his feet. The captain gurgled twice from his throat, lifted his hand to point at the door, then his head tilted to the side, and he stopped breathing completely. Master Jin turned his head stiffly. In the smoke and dust outside the door, you walked in slowly. You were covered in filth. That pale, smiling mask of yours had long been dyed dark red. The eyes under the mask were terrifyingly calm. You didn't waste any words. You just walked up to the special bulletproof glass said to withstand even armor-piercing bullets and slowly raised your right hand, pressed your 5 fingers lightly against it. The next second, centered on your palm, the entire glass surface started sprouting. Spiderweb-shaped black cracks. That wasn't regular cracking. That was the space itself being torn apart. Master Jin finally completely lost it. Screamed to tell you to stop. He even brought up the barrier. Military merits behind the glass, then tried to offer money. The Wang family's influence, and promised big rewards to beg for his life. Too bad those words to you weren't even worth the sound of wind. You clenched your 5 fingers. Crack. After a weird low humming sound, that thick special bulletproof glass, along with the half-meter thick alloy wall was ripped clean out by you, leaving a perfect 3-meter wide round hole in the wall. The huge round wall chunk crashed down with a boom, shaking the entire box. Master Jin's last bit of sense of security was shattered along with it. He fell to his knees with a thud and kowtowed like crazy, snot and tears all over his face. "Don't hurt me! I'll give you everything! Everything! The level 4 Ice Soul crystal core is in the safe." You grabbed his hair hard, lifted his entire body off the ground, and dragged him to the hidden compartment like a sack. After iris and fingerprint verification, the safe slowly opened. A bone-chilling cold instantly filled the entire room. Master Jin shakily took out a blue metal box and held it above his head with both hands. You took the box and lifted the lid with one hand. Inside the box, the fist-sized, fully translucent crystal core. With an ice blue storm swirling, inside it came into your view instantly. That extremely pure cold air even made the space power inside you tremble slightly. It's real. You immediately stored it in your space. When Master Jin saw he had handed over the item, he actually still wanted to beg for his life. He even said he was from the provincial capital's Wang family, trying to use his background to save his life. Too bad before he finished talking, an invisible sharp edge flashed past. His voice stopped abruptly. His head separated from his body instantly, rolled onto the ground with a thud. Blood from his neck spurted out with a squish, splashing all over half your body. You kicked away the still twitching body with one foot. Your tone was icy flat, no inflection at all. I don't care who the hell you are. If you don't root out the weed completely, it'll come back to bite you sooner or later. You learned that lesson ages ago in the dark alleys of the slums. After you got the item, you didn't leave right away. Instead, you sliced open the main gas line by the corner. High-pressure gas hissed out sharply, quickly filling the entire private room. Then you flicked a lighter on and tossed that small flame right into this lavish, sinful grave. Then you turned around and walked out without looking back. A few seconds later, boom. A deafening explosion blew up from the top floor. Flames and shockwaves, like a raging, giant dragon, swept through the entire underground killing field. Steel was twisting. Walls were collapsing. This place that had devoured countless lives finally got the destruction it deserved. You faced the firelight and heat wave behind you and climbed the stairs to the ground step by step. When you pushed open the heavy iron door, blinding morning light fell right on your face. You lifted your hand to slowly take off the dark red smiling face mask, revealing a slightly pale but sharp, cold young face. The ice soul crystal core is secured. Next step is saving my little sister. As for all the other debts, I'll settle them later. It was the wee hours of the morning. You all but broke through to hospital's silence as you rushed in. The doctor on duty was still half asleep, but when you slammed the cold box holding the Tier 4 Ice Soul Crystal Core down hard on the table, he was wide awake in a second. His voice even cracked with shock. Tier 4 Ice Soul Crystal Core. Soon the entire intensive care ward was lit up bright again. Top doctors, sterile labs, dilution procedures, energy guidance processes, a whole set of operations that would never have been completed this quickly at this hour, were all pushed into action by this crystal core. You stood outside the sterile observation room, staring through the glass at Lin Xie on the hospital bed. The diluted ice blue energy was being injected into her body bit by bit through precision equipment. At first, the vital signs curve on the monitor was fluctuating wildly. You could almost hear your own heart pounding. But after a moment, the change finally happened. The deadly frost on her face started to fade slowly. The purple-blue tint on her lips also faded bit by bit. Her heartbeat, once so faint it was almost gone, rose from 30, 45, 50 all the way up, and finally stabilized in the normal range. The shrill alarm sounds that had been blaring nonstop in the ward shut off one by one. When the first ray of morning sun shone into the hallway, the attending doctor finally took off his mask. Tired but clearly overjoyed, he said, "We did it. Her bodily functions are stable now. All she needs next is rest to recover." Those words felt like they suddenly pulled out. The last pillar holding you up. The nerves you had stretched tight for half a month finally relaxed completely. Overwhelming exhaustion flooded your body in an instant. You sat by the hospital bed looking at your little sister's sleeping face that finally had a little color back, and your eyelids could no longer hold up. You fell into a deep sleep. This was the most peaceful sleep you'd had in ages, but you had no idea that the massive Tier 4 cold energy inside Lin Xia's body, after stabilizing her life, still left behind a tiny portion. That wisp of extremely pure energy flowed silently into your body through some indescribable blood bond between the two of you. Compared to the entire Tier 4 crystal core, this leftover bit was negligible. But for you right now, it was enough to trigger a real transformation. I don't know how much time passed. You woke up with a jolt. At first, there was a sharp stabbing pain, like a steel needle was stirring violently inside your head. But right after, this pain was completely covered by a pleasure like your soul was being elevated. You could clearly feel that invisible barrier deep in your mind that had been limiting your spatial ability was shattered violently by this foreign energy. Mental threshold broken through. Spatial control skyrocketed. You immediately looked inward at your ability core, and your breath caught for a second. The storage space that was originally only 1 cubic meter was now being torn open and expanded by an invisible big hand, its size growing wildly. 2 cubic meters, 5 cubic meters, 10 cubic meters. In just a few breaths, the space that was originally like a small box had expanded directly into a warehouse. But that wasn't even the most important part. The second the space expansion finished, a brand new law imprint was quietly engraved on the space core. You moved your mind slightly and put a glass of water from the nightstand into the space. Then you activated that new imprint, Buzz. The originally swaying water surface in the cup froze instantly. Even a drop that was about to fall midair. Even the dripping droplet was eerily suspended midair. Time in that small pocket of space seemed like someone had hit the pause button. You instantly realized what this new power did. Absolute stasis. Any non-living object or energy form pulled into the space will have its state completely locked down. If a living creature is forced inside, then all its biological functions will drop to nearly zero inside the space. It's basically being locked in a cage where time stands still. What does this mean? It means you can store way more warheads later. Fire blasts, explosions, and shockwaves. You can also, right when an enemy is about to attack, directly pull the attack or even part of their limbs right into the space. What's even crazier, you can even temporarily pull a part of your own body into the space and release it out from another spot, creating a freaky attack that's almost like teleportation. This isn't just a quantitative change, it's a full-on qualitative leap. You clenched your fists, feeling the overwhelming spatial power surging inside you like never before. A cold glint flashed across your eyes. Right now, even if you ran into a real level 5 powerhouse head-on, you don't have to bet your life just to stand a chance anymore. But right at this moment, on the public TV outside the ward, an energetic news broadcast was playing. Today, the highly anticipated National Joint Entrance Exam for Advanced Ability User Academies has officially kicked off in the capital, Jingcheng. Hundreds of S-rank and A-rank geniuses from the Federation's major conglomerates, top aristocratic families, and military system have all gathered in Jingcheng. They will compete for slots at the Federation's 3 top academies in a fierce month-long competition. On the TV screen, young, proud, glamorous faces flashed by one after another. They were wearing fancy combat uniforms, with prominent family badges on their backs. Countless flashbulbs popped above their heads, like they were born to stand at the top of the world. You stood by the window watching the screen quietly, as your gaze slowly turned colder. These people are the real, favored children of this world. Resources, family background, slots, reputation. They had all of these the moment they were born. You clawed your way up step by step from ruins, dark alleys, and the brink of death. But that's exactly why. You have to go even more. You walked into the bathroom and washed all the dirt off your body completely. Then you put on a black combat uniform that you seized from the Shura battlefield. Then you slung the long, narrow saber you casually took from Jinyi's safe across your back, then glanced back one last time at your little sister sleeping soundly on the hospital bed. She finally survived. Now it's your turn to settle the score with this world. You pushed open the hospital doors. The midday sun was as sharp as a knife, but you only squinted a little before walking out. Jiangcheng, this place full of darkness and struggle is nothing but a novice starting zone. The real hunting ground is in Jingcheng. The game where those privileged geniuses get a taste of despair has only just begun.